All right, so just imagine this for a second. You're only 18 miles from downtown Denver, yet you're in this complete mountain oasis, somewhere completely different than pretty much anywhere else that you've been to as a suburb of downtown Denver. Well, this video is going to be that secret spot. So keep this one between us. Don't tell all your friends, but I'm really excited to share a brand new episode of Living in Denver with you today, all about this suburb you've probably never heard of, but you need to. So stay tuned. I'm excited to share it with you. All right, guys. Well, welcome back to a brand new episode of Living in Denver. As always, my name's Adam, licensed realtor, but more importantly, a Colorado and Denver native of over 40 years. And I'm going to share with you today a secret neighborhood, a suburb that you're probably not that familiar with because it's just not one that's talked that much about, and it's just definitely a hidden gem. I don't like using that term gem, but I don't know what else to say other than that word today because it truly is just a very special area that once people kind of get situated and move to Denver and have spent a few years here, they usually eventually find out about it and they say what a lot of people say, which is, man, I wish I would have learned about this place sooner and maybe even considered moving out to this southwestern side of Denver in this very unique and very cool spot. So where am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about Ken Caryl, and Ken Caryl actually has a lot of different areas to it. And I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about all of these, but I'm going to share one specifically that I think is without a doubt the coolest spot in town, in an area that I have strived to live in myself. I've got family that lives over there. I've sold real estate in this area. I just love it. So we'll talk about that one in a second. But first, I just want to share a little bit more about what Ken Caryl is and just share a little bit more about why it's so special. So first off, just to share a little bit of a background story with you, back in 1913, there was this Midwestern newspaper mogul, a magnate named John Charles Schaefer. And for only about $100,000, ended up buying over 2,500 acres of this area, which is now known as Ken Caryl. So you wonder maybe why is it Ken Caryl? Well, this gentleman, he actually had two sons, one named Kent and one named Caryl, and that's where Ken Caryl was derived from, the first names of his two kids. Originally, when it was purchased, it was actually a cattle ranch, but going into that Great Depression in the 1920s, he ended up being forced to sell it to the banks. But the good news is that ranching legacy still exists. You definitely will see a lot of it when you're driving through the different subdivisions of Ken Caryl, and they've done a great job just with preserving some of that very historic notoriety and uniqueness that you don't find in that many other neighborhoods around Denver. If you pull up Google Maps and see where it's located in relation to downtown Denver, you're going to see that it's quite a bit to the west and also a little bit to the south. So you do have a bit longer of a commute if you are still going into downtown Denver on a daily or maybe a somewhat regular basis. If you are going to downtown Denver, you're going to be looking at probably 40 to 45 minutes. The good news is there are some roads you'll be able to take that aren't quite as crowded, at least on a typical daily basis, as some of the others that are very, kind of notorious for being bad, like I-25. So you're gonna be able to avoid some of that, but it still will be at least a 40-minute commute to downtown Denver. And it also will be a bit longer if you're trying to get all the way out to the airport. There is a tollway as part of E470, which will make it a little bit quicker, and you'll at least be moving fairly quickly the whole time. But you're looking at probably 50 minutes minimum, maybe even as much as an hour, depending on the time of day that you're going. So you are a little bit further away from some of those amenities, if that's important to you. But with that minor sacrifice, in my opinion, what you gain is far outweighing a little bit longer time in the car. And that's just this true blend of being close to all of the amenities of Denver and all the great things that the suburban lifestyle offers you in Littleton and just in the areas around Denver. But you also have all of this great access to nature, outdoor lifestyle, tons of stuff that is very rare to find really anywhere in Denver, even on other neighborhoods that are on the western slope. Other areas that are on the western side of town that are further north of Ken Caryl, places like Golden, even areas like Wheat Ridge and Applewood, they're all amazing as well. But what's so cool with Ken Caryl is it's smaller and it just has this very unique blend, again, with nature and the community of homes that are in these areas. When I had my aunt and uncle's house that I was selling a few years back, we had bear, We had eagles, we even had mountain lion, well, they're actually bobcats. We had all these animals literally in the backyard and in the front yard throughout the tenure of when we were selling the home. So just a ton of wildlife, which is such a cool, unique experience to have when you're living still in a suburban, area that's within a 30-minute drive to pretty much all of the amenities that Denver has, all the shopping centers, schools, all that good stuff. When you look at the entire area of Ken Caryl, it's broken down into several smaller subdivisions, but the overall median sales price for homes this past year was right around $550,000, which is pretty much standard for a lot of parts of Denver. So overall, you're not going to see that large of a change or a difference. However, some of the more independent specific areas within Ken Caryl, you can see some that are much, much higher, including my personal favorite that I'm gonna share with you guys at the end. The overall size of Ken Caryl is just over 33,000 residents, and the median household income for 2024, this past year, you're looking at about $116,000 for the household median income. If you want to check out school districts and just some of the ratings when it comes to schools, definitely check out niche.com. But on niche.com, they actually have some that are ranked very high, including some that are even in the A range. So as good as you can get pretty much. And I think a lot of that does come down to some of the affluence and very wealthy neighborhoods that do surround some of these Ken Caryl areas. You do have access, though, to a few different schools, including Chatfield, Dakota Ridge. You do have a few to choose that are within the Jefferson County public school system. So when I talk about just the blend of having all of this outdoor activities in your backyard, ready to get out and enjoy as soon as you get off of work or maybe on the weekends, whenever the time comes, just to really hit that even more to home for you guys, there's actually over 4,800 acres of open space. There's over 50 miles of private trails all throughout this area and tons of parks, open space. There's just so much to choose from. It's awesome. You also do have some areas that have direct access to Chatfield Reservoir, which is one of the best spots in Denver if you want to get out on water and enjoy water skiing and wake surfing and all that good stuff, paddle boarding. Denver, we really don't have a ton of water, so Chatfield is one of the best options if you do live in Denver. The others would be places like Cherry Creek Reservoir. But if you are in Ken Caryl, you're also really close to Bear Creek State Park. This you won't find big speedboats and water skiing, but on a weekend, you'll see probably 100 or more people paddleboarding. So still some really fun activities to do also at that Bear Creek State Park. Okay, so now that you know a little bit about Ken Caryl and what makes it so special, let's dig in a little bit deeper into the neighborhoods and specifically my favorite, but also where you can really start to tell where these different neighborhoods are located and what makes each of them unique and special. What makes it really easy is there's a ridge that goes north to south, and it really does divide the entire Ken Caryl area into the west and eastern sides. And this helps you at least understand where some of these different neighborhoods I'm going to share with you are located. So first, we'll talk about the neighborhoods on the eastern side of this north to south ridge. So the eastern side of Ken Caryl, you'll typically find homes that are a little bit more affordable, a little bit more family friendly for the most part, and definitely a lot more volume, so more homes to choose from. So on this eastern side, there really are 5 main subdivisions and areas for you to consider and maybe check out. And I'll just run through each of these quickly just so you at least know the names and are familiar with what makes each of these different and special. So first off, we have the ranch. And this is kind of a generalized area, but one thing about the ranch is this is where you're gonna find some more starter condos in that mid $300,000 range, and quite a few 3 to 4 bedroom homes that are in that $600,000 to $650,000 range. Next up, you're gonna have the Enclave. And these are also townhomes along with some single family homes that are a bit on the smaller side. These often will have less maintenance and are definitely great options for a lot of different people, but I've found personally experience with some clients where they're younger families just trying to kind of get their first starter home if this is an area that they really want to kind of get their roots and their feet planted in and just make this their forever part of Denver that they're going to be living in. Next up, we've got Stratford Farms. And Stratford Farms are semi-custom homes, definitely a little bit more on that traditional style of homes. And these were mostly built in the kind of late 80s, early 90s. So you're looking at homes that are pushing, 35 to 40 years. So if this is an area that you might be considering, just be aware that the homes might have a little bit of upkeep needed, maybe new mechanical systems that have gone past their useful life, maybe a new roof, maybe even some small upgrades inside the home just to kind of bring it up to the style and really what's in right now when it comes to more open floor plans and more of a living space that blends work and personal life, where you're able to potentially work for home, as an example. Next up, we have Schaefer Hill. To be honest with you, I'm not that familiar with this one, but it also is an area that tends to be a little bit on the smaller size as far as number of homes. You got a lot in this area that are also really good for starter homes, about 1,800 square feet to 2,200, so a little bit smaller than those larger 3 to 4 bedroom homes, but definitely really good options in this area if you are looking just, again, for that starter home, getting yourself planted in the Ken Caryl area. And then last but not least, for this eastern side of Ken Caryl, you've got Legacy and Heirloom. And this is another area that is, I think, really kind of the spot that most people get to before they move over and hopefully get into the western side of Ken Caryl, which I'm going to be talking about here in a second, my personal favorite spot. But when it comes to Legacy and Heirloom, these are also semi-custom homes. I think for the most part, they're gonna be a little bit more expensive than some of the other areas we just talked about, but definitely also a great option, especially since you are a little bit closer to C470, which is what's gonna take you very quickly to other parts of Littleton, as well as taking it just directly northwest to get to areas like Wheat Ridge, Applewood, Golden, and just to get onto I-70 to get up to the ski mountains. All right, so now we got to the fun part, which is the western side of Ken Caryl. And a lot of the locals in Ken Caryl actually call this the Valley Shuffle. And just what that means is it's people that have initially identified Ken Caryl as a great place. They want to move and be in this area for the long run. They start off on that eastern side, and maybe as they get older and build up a little bit more net worth and buying power, they've done that shuffle at this point and gotten over to the western side of Ken Caryl. And this is an area that is even more special in my opinion, just because it's so much closer to the mountains. And this is the spot that really does just have all of the wildlife and even more open space with trails right out your back door. Just so unique and a very, very, very special place in my opinion. So you do have quite a few other subdivisions on this western side of Ken Caryl, but I really just want to focus on two. And these two are, I may be a little biased, but I think the best out of the entire Ken Caryl community. And the first one is going to be Barrington Ridge. Now, Barrington Ridge has some large homes. We're talking a half acre up to well over an acre in lot size, but also just the square footage of the homes can be anywhere from about 4,200 all the way up to 7,000 square feet, or maybe even a little bit above that. So some very large homes. And this is an area that's been around for quite some time, and for a long period were really some of the nicest homes in all of Denver. This was a very sought after community and definitely very exclusive back in the day. And that really hasn't changed much. It still definitely is that case. It just really takes that special type of buyer, special type of person or family that wants to live in an area where you do have that blend of both nature and outdoor lifestyle, but also you are still within a 30 to 40 minute drive to pretty much anywhere you need to get when it comes to shopping, restaurants, schools, everything. But now I'm finally ready to share with you my favorite, which is going to be North Ranch at Ken Caryl. And if you guys follow me on YouTube and you've watched my prior videos, I've got a bunch that I just really solely talk about North Ranch at Ken Caryl, just because it is such a special place. It does really need its own separate videos. It's such a cool, unique spot. And I know I've said that about 10 times already in this video, but it's true. So I really just am passionate and want to share that with you guys. So when it comes to North Ranch, one of the things that I also love is just how you have all of these trails that aren't just, close, they're literally like in your backyard. In a lot of these trails, you'll see signs all over the place that are kind of warning people that these trails are private and they're only for residents of Ken Caryl. And this is nice because whether or not people are actively patrolling the trails and making sure this is the case, it keeps 90% of the riffraff out of there. So if you do live in Ken Caryl, and especially in North Ranch, you're able to hop on your mountain bike after work and have just all this basically to yourself. It's definitely a big mountain bike spot. So I've had a few different clients over the years that have purposely, wanted to live in Ken Caryl just for the mountain biking. So that's the type of quality of trails it has to get people that are literally moving there just for something as maybe simple, it seems, as mountain biking trails. This is a very private community, and with that comes a lot higher price point per home. I'm seeing homes in this area that start out at the $1.5 million range and go up well into the $2 to $3 million range. Even a few areas that could be even a little bit higher than that in North Ranch, especially if they've got unobstructed views with the red rocks and just beautiful, beautiful backdrops to where your home is literally situated in an area where you've got incredible red rocks, just a couple feet from your backyard, as well as high enough up on the hill where you can also still see some of the city lights at night just over that ridge that, again, I mentioned earlier, that goes north-south and really breaks out between the western and eastern side of Ken Caryl. And then one last thing I want to share just about Ken Caryl in general, whether it be the east or the western side, is how we do have this very special just kind of tribute to the heritage of the area, specifically with that ranch lifestyle. There's also an equestrian center, the Ken Caryl Equestrian Center, which you see pretty much anywhere that you're trying to drive on the western side of Ken Caryl. You're going to see this, and it's awesome. There's tons of horses all the time. You'll see young kiddos sometimes taking horseback riding lessons. You'll drive right by them. Just a very nice quality facility. Indoor, outdoor arenas, private riding stalls, just everything in a very top-notch, high-quality fashion. And on top of that equestrian center, another awesome place to check out is the Manor House. I've been here for a couple of events over the years, and it just sits on top of this hill as you're driving up to the North Ranch, and it has incredible views, this massive American flag. The style of the construction of the building is very old, just has this heritage behind it that is awesome. And definitely just a cool spot, if nothing else, to maybe take a drive up to and pull into the parking lot and just kind of check out. So definitely look into the Manor House. And again, that's going to be on the western side of Ken Caryl as you drive up to the North Ranch, my favorite spot in the entire Ken Caryl community. So to kind of wrap this video up, just wanted to end it with this. A couple pros and a couple cons when it comes to Ken Caryl. Not one specific subdivision or area, but just overall, when we're talking about Ken Caryl, let's first just talk about a couple of the pros or the top reasons why it's such a cool spot to check out. Number one, it's going to be just that private open space, tons of trails right out your back door. A real perfect blend, in my opinion, of that outdoor lifestyle along with being still within a few minute drive of all of the urban amenities that Denver has to offer. Also, definitely very family friendly when it comes to some of the Jefferson County schools that are in this area that have quite high ratings if you check them out yourself on niche.com. Along with those private trails and that open space, just the wildlife that you're going to see here, which is so unique compared to pretty much almost anywhere else in all of Denver, where literally on a given day you can run into a bear, a mountain lion, deer, elk, eagles. I'm forgetting a few others. There's so much in the Ken Caryl area, especially on that western side in North Ranch, for example. And then last but not least, another pro is going to be just from a resale perspective. You have a ton of appreciation and opportunities to really see your investment go far just because you're in an area that is very limited in size. There's not really any more room to continue to expand and build new homes. So if you get into North Ranch, you're pretty safe because there's not going to be a lot of other builds. So that home that you have is rare. And as with any type of economics, supply and demand, you've got something that very few people can get their hands on. So the price will continue to go up for years to come. Okay, so now let's just talk about a couple cons or maybe some slight negatives. The first one is probably what most people tell me when I take them out to see this part of town, is just its location when it comes to time and convenience. If you are maybe somebody that has a couple young kiddos where you're having to drive them to different places throughout the day just to get to and back from those places, you're going to spend a lot of time just because it does take a little bit longer, especially if you are on the western side of Ken Caryl in a place like North Ranch. Another thing could be your HOA rules. There are some differences between some of the different areas that I've shared with you. So these HOAs, can vary in cost, but also some people just prefer not to have them. They like to do what they want with their home when it comes to colors and materials on their outside of their home or maybe their fence, stuff like that. So if that's something that's important to you to not have an HOA, you're going to have a hard time finding anywhere in Ken Caryl that doesn't have one. But I will play devil's advocate. With the HOA, you do get some other great amenities, including some very special clubhouses, pools, as well as just knowing that all the neighbors around you are going to also keep their homes well manicured into a certain high standard that's required when you live in an area with an HOA. And then my last but not least con is just going to be, especially again on that western side of Ken Caryl, just the cost. The barrier to entry, or just to get into this area, is going to cost a lot more than other areas in Denver for the most part. If the western side of Ken Caryl is really, catching your eye and your interest, you're going to be needing to at least have probably $1 million budget for the majority of homes on the western side. There are still options out there. You might find some that are a bit less than that, but overall, you definitely need to be prepared and expect to be paying a premium to be in such a rare and such a valuable part of Denver that's very limited in size and volume of homes that are even there to begin with. So a lot to think about here, but overall, just wanted to make sure you guys knew about this area because not that many people do. But hopefully now that you do, you might be interested enough to reach out and I can share some more specific favorite spots about this area. Maybe even check out a couple restaurants that I love that are close by. And just more than anything else, I'm always here as a resource for you. So feel free, all that info down below, reach out whenever. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this. Every single month, I'm hosting live and they're free Denver Homebuyer Masterclass webinars. They're online. You don't have to have your camera on or anything like that if you don't want to. But what it is it's just a great opportunity to learn about what's happening today in the Denver real estate market. I host them every month with one of the top mortgage professionals. His name is Benjamin Adams. He's a good, really close friend of mine. And he actually also grew up in the Wheat Ridge, western side of Denver. And every single month we host these. They get filled up quick. So down below, I'll leave you guys with the link. It's webinar.adamsoulsdenver.com. Grab a free seat, and I hope to see you guys on that next one. And until next week on a brand new episode of Living in Denver, I'll see you then. Talk to you then. Bye.